You lily-livered punk! I'm running this camping trip! Hello, huge movie fanatic Nay, stopping on by once again, coming at you to review one of these animals, slash nature gone amok movies. Today I'm coming at you to review Day of the Animals, also known as Something Is Out There. This incidentally is a movie from the same director from Grizzly a year later in 1977, William, what's his name? William Girdler. The guy who, as I said, directed Grizzly a year before. This coming out a year later, 1977. I think it is said to be his last movie, from what I've heard in making of or commentaries on these discs. Is he was said to have died in a helicopter crash after the completion of this movie, like scouting a location for another movie or something like that. So this, I think, if memory serves, is his last movie, which is kind of a shame because, if you look at Grizzly and then a year later this, he was kind of on a roll, although I would regard this movie as not nearly as good, in my opinion, as Grizzly. He was definitely kind of on a roll with these animals run amok movies. This movie I wouldn't see, the reason I've got this Shriek Show DVD from Media Blasters. This is the first time I was ever made aware of this movie or or saw it, and my first and only copy of it I have. It came in this triple feature from Shriek Show, Media Blasters, with Day of the Animals, Grizzly, and I think it was the made-for-TV movie Devil Dog. So I think originally I got Grizzly on DVD in a standalone release, and then my first DVD of it, the Shriek Show Media Blasters one, it like rotted, where the last third of the movie it wouldn't play. So then I went to, I was looking to replace it, and I think that this triple feature was like the same price or close to the same price as just the Grizzly DVD alone. So I got this, and then I figured I could have two more movies. So as I said, and I apparently keep saying that's that release is the reason I ended up getting this. I didn't just get it just to get it because I don't know who the hell would. So I probably saw this for the first time, I would imagine, in '07 like that or something like that, when I got the triple feature thing. And as I said, this is just another nature animals run amok kind of a movie. And it's funny because on the cover it's like starring Leslie Nielsen, but this has got, it's directed by the guy who did Grizzly a year earlier, and it's got a lot of the same actors in it. Christopher George is top billing, Leslie Nielsen second, and then Christopher George's really sexy ass wife Linda Day George also joins her husband in this movie as the third billing. And just like the guy from Grizzly, you got Richard Jekyll. And I don't know who this Michael and Sarah is, or Ruth Norman, or whatever, but it's kind of interesting to note that the guy who did the music for this one is the Lalo Schifrin, or however the hell you say his name, the guy who did the music for Bullitt, Steve McQueen movie and Amityville Horror, and he did all kinds of music for, I think, relatively big budget and well-known movies and stuff. He's kind of, I don't know why, he's kind of slumming it here. Of course, he would slum it a lot more when he'd do the music for his son's movie, Abominable, sometime in the early 2000s or whatever. But I guess if you call this slumming it, wait until you get to Abominable. But anyway, this is basically a movie about Christopher George, and it should be said that Christopher George plays, his character in this movie is kind of annoying because he kind of plays this cowboy, wears a cowboy hat throughout the whole movie, and he's got not only that, but he's got this cowboy accent, like, I never seen him act like, never seen him come down this low before. Like, I was trying to do the cowboy wording. I can't even do it. And I haven't seen him come this low before. Yeah, it's like that. We just kind of don't say the B, and it's just like for. I haven't seen that happen before. That's the cowboy speak. But he's got this kind of annoying cowboy accent, which it seems like he's just, I don't know, it seems like it was heavy when he started the movie, and then as it wore on, or as the movie wears on, it seems like it kind of fades away or whatever. I don't know if they shot it in order, or whatever you call it. I can't think of the word right now. I don't know if they shot it in sequence or not. But the movie is basically about Christopher George being this guide this, I guess, this camping, guide slash director guy who takes all these, sordid characters out. Leslie Nielsen plays this advertising executive bigwig, and then there's this Indian guy who he was going with, he's constantly making fun of and taking jabs at. This mom with this teenage son. I will say this teenage son is probably one of these actors who had some kind of a growth, whatever you want to call it, deficiency or something. He looks like one of these people who are actually older but can pass for younger. I'm not sure if that's the case with the teen son in this movie, but he's got that appearance, like the guy who played in the first Children of the Corn movie, who played the main head honcho kid or whatever. I mean, he's like a man, but he could pass for a kid or whatever. So it could be that that the teen, the young kid in this movie has that whatever. Probably, this person's probably in their 20s and passing for teen or whatever. But I mean, I guess they do that anyway. I mean, in movies or whatever. But who else do you got in here? Oh, you got this couple. Oh, the woman from the beginning of Jaws also makes an appearance. She kind of dies early on in the movie, but she's one of the. The woman who gets killed at the very beginning of Jaws is in this movie for maybe the first, 20 minutes or something like that, or the first third of this movie. She's a character who's going on this camping trip with her, I don't know if it's husband or boyfriend, who the guy spends too much time at his law office, so they're going on this, camping trip to try to mend the relationship. And she says, well, if you spend as much time with me as you did with your law office, we wouldn't need this trip, which I guess, in that rare instance, the woman is right. But I don't want to offend my female viewers, if any. But I'm just kind of joking around. But we all know that, jokes have part of truth in them as well, so whatever. And who else is in this camping trip? Oh yeah, then this kind of, sexy young couple, hot guy, not that I'm into guys. And but I mean, I would imagine a woman, I would imagine this guy is probably by women considered hot. And then his girlfriend, which, being a hetero male, I can say is hot. So I think I pretty much summarized up the group of campers which get helicoptered up to this location where they just hike around. And I think there's predetermined campsites and stuff, and if need be, food drops by helicopters and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of a cool idea. So the whole premise of this movie is basically back in the 70s. I would imagine, I'm not sure, I would imagine this is the time where the whole ozone layer bullshit was being fed to the masses. I would imagine this is when it started. I don't know exactly when it started, but regardless if it started back in this time, mid to late 70s, they're pushing it in this time, the supposed ozone layer depletion and all this and that. They've always got to have something in the media to make us fearful, make us worried, and to drive, to steer legislation towards whatever direction they want it to go. So whether you believe in the whole which is really hard to even prove, or even you can't even prove to anyone that the so-called ozone layer depletion thing was even real, or if there's an ozone layer to begin with. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm just simply saying that like so many things is often the case in mainstream media or whatever, this movie is basically front and center about the ozone layer depletion. That's how it's played in the movie, and as a result of the ozone layer depletion from the aerosol spray cans, the sun's harmful UV rays can get through more because the depleting or the thinning ozone layer. So it has, in this movie, the whole cause of the animals running amok is this these harmful UV rays or whatever having an adverse effect on the wildlife at high altitudes. Of course, this camping trip is a high altitude area where they're being helicoptered into this mountain or wherever the hell they're hiking and or camping around. So, so that's the basic premise of this movie. I mean, people are helicoptered into a high altitude area, and just by chance, this is a really sunny, bright day. With it should also be said, this movie is called Day of the Animals. Well, this movie takes place over several days, so it should be Days of the Animals. But whatever, that's just a small nitpick. So that's the general premise of this movie. Yeah, so I mean, unlike Grizzly that has like a bear attack and kills two women, one of them really attractive, within like the first 10 minutes of this movie. This movie is, having rewatched it recently, is relatively, I was, I remember it being more fun than this, but having seen it again for the first time in almost probably 10 years or whatever, and the fact that I haven't seen it in that long probably also, kind of spoken to its what I thought about it or whatever. But I mean, just like nothing really happens. I mean, well, the majority of this movie is, I kind of get sick of it, to be honest, with all these shots of animals, and I mean, I guess it's kind of cool, and the trainers did a good job and stuff. But there's so much throughout them, I don't know if it's like halfway through the movie, by the time you get to there, you almost get sick of just seeing shots of animals and, hawks and eagles or, buzzards or whatever the hell these things are, landing on a tree limb, watching the people, walk through the path and just watching them and then flying away. It's just like, yeah, the trainers and stuff that they got to do the movie and all that, they did a really good job in the technical aspects of, photographing these animals and stuff is good, but it's almost like, I don't know, I mean, for me it was just like, when I watched it recently or rewatched it, it's just like, man, how many shots of animals just stalking prey can you shoot and put into a movie? But what I was saying is, unlike Grizzly, which has a lot of, maybe not a lot, but enough grizzly attacks to kind of keep you interested, this movie doesn't really have a lot. I mean, nothing really happens animal attack-wise until like 30 minutes in the movie, which is they're camping, and the woman from Jaws gets attacked by a wolf-like thing, dog, wolf-like thing or whatever, and then she's like, oh, it was so harrowing, but she doesn't die, but that event causes her and her husband or whoever that guy is that she's with to want to hike to some nearby ranger station to get flown out of there or whatever. And of course, when they do that, the woman ends up being attacked by birds. Animals hate this chick, and ends up falling to her death. And for the rest of the movie, we keep cutting back to the exploits of her husband, who's still trying to make his way down the mountain or whatever, to just make his way out of there and stay alive or whatever. And it's just like, I was watching it like, oh my God, like, although it's a beautiful scenery and sunny days and all this and that and funny characters and stuff, it's just like, oh man, I mean, for those of you who are watching this for animal mayhem, I mean, nothing really even happens until 30 minutes in. And then there's this, we're introduced to this kind of fat sheriff guy at the beginning of the movie, which looks like he could be John Goff's dad. And I was listening to a little bit of commentary, and I think someone called him by the name of, I forgot. John Goff went by another name in Drive-In Massacre. I think he went by that name in several movies as well. Hell, I forgot what the hell his name, but it was like the same last name as that alternate name John Goff has gone by, and it's just like, I wonder if it is John Goff's dad. He looks like he could be John Goff's dad, but whether he is or not, he's just kind of a funny fat sheriff in this movie. And there's this scene, I don't know if it's like halfway through the movie or something like that, which is one of the funner scenes where this guy is gotten a phone call from the sheriff's office or whatever, like 1 a.m. or whatever, and things are all going to hell, like, animals are running amok, and he's like, we need you in here to, whatever. And he's like, okay, fine, he's going to get some breakfast or something to eat before he goes in, and he puts some meat down on the table, and he's going to get something else, and he looks back at it, and it's just like covered with rats. And then you got this rat attack scene where the rats are like jumping off the table onto him, and it's just like, I hope no rats really got hurt or whatever, making this scene or whatever, but it's just like, it's probably one of the funniest scenes in the movie, where it's just like, squeak, like when they jump, I'm sure there's like a squeak, like just, and these rats are, clearly they're just being yanked up by monofilament or something like that, but just the notion of these rats just jumping onto this guy and attacking him, it's just like, oh my gosh, the guy ends up living or whatever, but it's just like a funny scene. And what makes no sense is, I mean, the rats are indoors, so I mean, it's like, they're not even really affected, or, shouldn't really even be affected by the rays or whatever. Then there's this funny scene where there's like this, I don't know, earlier in the movie, there's this dog, and he's like, give me a piece of apple pie and put some ice cream on top. And the camera goes over to the window, and there's this dog just, he's just got just this mean look, like, so, I'm not going to say this movie's a complete loss, but in my opinion, compared to Grizzly, it's really not that great, because even though you got some great stars like Christopher George and Leslie Nielsen and Rob, or whatever his name is, what's his name? Richard Jekyll and even Linda Day George. I mean, you got a lot of great performers, but none of them really have, in my opinion, I don't know, characters that are really memorable. Or, you know, Richard Jekyll plays some kind of nerdy, I don't know, he's like a professor, I think, and he's wearing glasses, and it's just not, doesn't go with who that actor is. I mean, that actor is kind of buff and manly. It just doesn't really go with that actor, in my opinion, like that role or that part. And, you know, Christopher George, cowboy, and Leslie Nielsen, you know, asshole advertising executive. He's probably, you know, the funnest to watch, because this is before, I'm not exactly sure when Police Squad started, or before, well, yeah, this is before Airplane. I'm not exactly sure when the whole funny Leslie Nielsen thing started. I mean, Airplane was like 79 or something like that. So I don't know if he made his foray into comedy yet, but it is funny retrospectively. Of course, you know, me being the age I am, I grew up with the funny Leslie Nielsen, and it's funny to see a role where he's playing it straight, and not only that, but he's like this, you know, antagonist character who's bullying people, and later on towards the movie, I'll get to a little bit later, you know, he's just like, oh my God. So it's funny to, you know, see Leslie Nielsen be this, you know, non-comedic role, because from people like my generation and younger, you know, they're just going to see a part where Leslie Nielsen's just playing straight and just laugh because that's what they're used to. So about 55 minutes into the movie, you've got this mass attack scene where everyone's camping at night, you know. I don't know, I'm not exactly sure when they panic, and, you know, I don't know when the hell they decide to get the hell out of there. I think that, you know, Leslie Nielsen character wants them to, you know, when they get to this one location where there's supposed to be food drop. Well, there was a food drop, but the maniacal animals ripped it all open and, you know, ate it all. I think at that point there becomes this, you know, feud or dispute between Leslie Nielsen character and a couple of the other characters. Were like, we should stay here because, you know, they know where this spot is so they can rescue us. And, you know, Christopher George character's like, we got to keep, you know, hiking down the mountain or whatever. And I almost kind of agree with Leslie Nielsen. I mean, I guess they both have a point, you know. So at that point, they just kind of convinced Leslie Nielsen to keep going. And then there's some, I don't know if it's this attack, like 55 minutes in, where everyone gets attacked by big cats at night, you know, big, whatever the hell they are, panthers or you know, female, I don't know what the hell these things are. These are like jaguars or, you know, whatever, panthers, they're something. They're big cats, you know, and they're all attacked by big cats. And, you know, so many of the shots you can see they're not really attacking them, they're just kind of sitting there. And the people that are trying to pretend like they're being attacked, you can tell they're like trying to look like, you know, shake the cat around like they're trying to pretend like they're being attacked. It's kind of funny. This might be the event that, you know, separates Leslie Nielsen and also that, you know, quote-unquote young hot couple, and also the woman with the teenage son. They go off on their own while, like, you know, they're going to go back to some spot, maybe where the food was, to wait, and while the, you know, Christopher George, Linda Day George, and the Indian. Oh, there's also this this old, you know, has-been football star or something like that, who's got terminal cancer, who's also, I forgot to mention that guy, who's also a part of the group. So, you know, they all continue down the mountain or whatever. So I will say, unlike, you know, Grizzly, I mean, this movie, at least when you get past the hour mark, continues to be, well, that's because it really wasn't that great to begin with, in my opinion, but at least, I don't know, it continues to be kind of interesting even after the hour mark. But I guess my problem with it was it maybe wasn't really necessarily that completely amazing to begin with. So it's just continuing to be non-interesting. I don't know. Does that make sense? So as I said, Leslie Nielsen takes, you know, the hot couple and like mom and teenage son back up the mountain to try to go to that food drop spot, I think, to wait out for help or whatever. But just because, you know, the days are going on and the toxic UV radiation is just affecting the you know, the high altitude where they are, and of course they're going back up the hill, so he's getting even more affected. And Leslie Nielsen just becomes this animal, and it's just like this rainstorm, and he's got no shirt on, and he's like, you know, he's just like, he wants to basically it's just so funny to see Leslie Nielsen in this role. He's like, whatever I want, I take it, and right now I want that. And he points at the hot chick, from the young hot couple, and he's just like, oh my God. So he's basically, the boyfriend, of course, is, going to attack Leslie Nielsen and fight him or whatever. And Leslie Nielsen takes this big stick and just stabs it into his stomach. He's like, oh, killing the hot, quote unquote hot boyfriend. And oh my gosh, I think we cut away to something else and cut back to, the scene where basically Leslie Nielsen, shirtless in the rainstorm, has gone mad by the RV, or the RV, UV ray radiation. He's going insane. He's just driven back to his animal instincts, and he's gonna have his way with this, hot chick from the formerly hot couple or whatever, and ah, you're mine, I killed for you. These are lines that he says in the movie. It's just so fun. This is probably, besides the rat attack scene, probably the funny, or the most, entertaining part of the movie, where he's gonna rape this, hot girl, and it's just like, oh my God. And then out of the woods comes a grizzly bear, or, a bear, and from what I heard in the commentary, it's the same bear they used for the movie Grizzly, being just a year later. It's the same bear. I don't think it's a grizzly bear. I don't know. It's just, we'll just say it's a bear. So the bear from Grizzly is actually also in this movie. I think it's the one bear we see in the movie. And through a combination of shots of the actual bear roaring or whatever, and some guy in a suit or puppet bear, of course, Leslie Nielsen just being so, adversely affected by the UV radiation, just attacks the bear, and there's this little bear hug struggle, and we don't see him die, but obviously it's assumed that he dies. So that's probably the best part of this, one of the best parts of this whole movie is Leslie Nielsen versus bear, and at night in a rainstorm, and Leslie Nielsen's got no shirt on, and it's just like, ah. So as I said, that guy who was, the husband or whatever of that girl from the beginning of Jaws, who gets, killed at the beginning of Jaws, when his wife in the movie is attacked and she, by birds and falls to her death down to the rocks, like, he just spends the rest of the movie, we just, cut back and forth between the main campers and, and him and stuff. He ends up coming across this little girl whose parents presumably were killed by the animals, and he's like just going with her back down the mountain and stuff, and they end up coming down to some town, probably nearest town or whatever. Maybe we would imagine it's still probably a high elevation, because this town is, when they come to it, has been already since been run amok by animals, and just cars and whatever trash is strewn around or whatever, and it's just like, oh my God. And he goes to try to find go in his car, and there's like rattlesnakes in the car, and he gets attacked by this dog. I think it's the same dog that just sits around town going like that, I think. This might be the town that, the fat, sheriff guy had a piece of apple pie and some ice cream on top or whatever. This is kind of the staging area for where everyone met, the campers met to get in the choppers to be helicoptered up to the mountain or whatever. So, this guy ends up, successfully bringing this presumably orphan girl down, only to be, killed or whatever, attacked by rattlesnakes and then killed by the dog or whatever. And meanwhile, she's in like a classic old 70s Bronco, just, he put her in there for safekeeping, and she's kind of just watching him be massacred in the vehicle over. The next vehicle's his car. So he dies in his car or outside of his car, and the girl's just like, just kind of watching him perish, just like a yard or two away, and she's in the safety of the Bronco, of course. And it's just, that's one of the things about the movie that gets a little tiresome. It's just like, I don't know, every time you cut back to the guy and this, taking this girl down the mountain, it's just like, I don't know. Sometimes movies just get to be a drag and a boring, and I guess in my opinion, this, towards the end of this movie, it just becomes one of them. Shit, for the life of me, I don't remember what the hell happens to. Oh, okay. I think the mother and the teenage kid, and then the hot chick, formerly of the hot couple, make their way back down the mountain to. They end up back with the. I don't remember. Back with the. Or they end up I remember. They end up barricading themselves in a helicopter until all hell blows over, and that's what I'm getting at just now. Is that. Towards the end of the movie, the Christopher George and company make their way back down to town, and they're attacked by dogs. And I think Richard Jekyll and the whatchamacallit, the former NFL star, end up dying off camera. I mean, there's nothing really you know, I mean, gore or anything. I don't think you really. I think Grizzly was a little more graphic than this. So if you're looking for graphicness, I mean, you look somewhere else because there's really nothing going on here in regards to that other than just bloodied faces or whatever. You know, it was kind of funny in Grizzly to see limbs flying and horse heads flying and that kind of stuff. So I don't think there's really anything of that in this movie. So basically, I think Linda Day George character, she can't swim, and they you know, they want to get in the river or whatever, get away from the dogs, and they're like, let's break this dock loose, and the dogs are after him, having just killed, you know, Richard Jekyll character, pansy-ass professor, and the crippled football star. So it's what's funny is what ends up happening. I don't remember this, but it's like they break the I was watching it the other day. I was like, they break the dock away just in time for like the dogs that are after them to be on the dock. And what ends up happening is they're like hanging onto the dock, floating down the river, and the dogs are like on it, like just riding. And meanwhile, the humans are hanging off. You know, they're in the water, hanging off the side of the dock, and it just looks, I don't know, it's almost like a scene that went wrong and they just went with it or something. It just looks weird because why wouldn't the dogs be attacking them? I mean, their arms hanging onto the dock. It's just kind of a scene that makes no sense. And what ends up happening in the movie is just like, I don't know, I think characters wake up the next morning just to see all these animals just dead, all these animal corpses just laying around dead. So it's like the end of the movie, because you're kind of like, it's a little bit like War of the Worlds, I mean, in a way, because you're kind of like, well, how are people ever going to survive this? Like, the whole, you know, all these high altitude areas, people are just going to die, get killed by the animals. There's no way to beat the animals, and conveniently, you know, the animals just drop dead, or the next morning are just all dead, strewn around the streets and stuff like that, and it's just like War of the Worlds kind of ending in a way. And I don't know if it was just and then I think like I think it's, I don't know if I'm just interjecting my own thoughts, but it seems like at the end of the movie, like, oh, the ozone goes back to normal, or the radiation levels go back to normal, or some crap. So I don't know if there was a spike in that overnight that just fried the animals. I don't know. Who the hell knows? I mean, it's a dumb movie from the 70s. What the hell do you want from me? So having rewatched it after probably, I don't know, close to a decade, if not a decade, I found it relatively, compared to Grizzly, very difficult actually to get through. I'm going to go, I don't know, somewhere between 1.25 to 1.5 stars for Day of the Animals, aka something is out there. It's weird because, you know, the cast lineup, you'd think it would be, you know, a better overall ending, or I can't even think. The end product you'd think would be better than it ended up being. But, you know, like I say, there's a lot of that's one of my problems with it. There's a lot of technical wizardry in terms in regards to, you know, photographing, you know, trained animals and animals to do what you want them to do, and birds flying to certain spots and landing and all this kind of stuff, that it's almost such a technical endeavor that it almost, I don't know, it was so technical that it almost maybe, I don't know, stripped away some of it. It just seems almost too technical. Like an exercise in, instead of, you know, being just a movie that flows, it just seems like I don't know, a nature documentary thing that's just, I can't explain it. Like instead of having a living, breathing life to it, it just seems like such a technical operation to get all these animals to do what they want for the camera. And I don't know, it just seems like it's the movie is half trained animals hitting their marks, and then half people just like taking a tiger and pretending like it's attacking them. I don't know, it might be too much of a technical thing to flow freely. Maybe I'm just seeing something that's not there, but you know, not a huge fan of this movie. Incidentally, this is a kind of a cool DVD. It features 2 versions of the movie. Day of the Animals, it's just like what are they calling it? The television version in a what are they saying? Pristine television master. It's really strange because it's like 1:8:5 anamorphic on the DVD, but it's still like pan and scan. So I don't know if it's like a full frame that they cropped to 1:8:5 for the DVD or whatever. But that one looks better. But of course, this is a 2:3:5 movie, so you're actually missing. I mean, it's kind of a weird release. because you get the better picture quality, but you're not getting the whole image. And then there's like an archival print of the movie by the name of Something Is Out There, which you actually get the full ratio, but it's like a Grindhouse midnight showing print where it's like a really crappy print, which is kind of fun, but you're like losing bits and pieces of the movie and stuff. That's always the version, incidentally, that I watch, just because I want to see the whole screen, you know, and it's kind of fun to watch one of those a presentation like that, which, as I said in other reviews and stuff, is kind of like the midnight screening, aka Grindhouse print or whatever. So I know this is just like with Grizzly, this is actually an out of print Blu-ray from Scorpion releasing, I think, and looking on blue-ray.com, it actually scored really well. But I looked on eBay. I wasn't looking to buy it, but I looked on eBay and it's like going for like $60 or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, whatever. After I watched it, I'm like, you know, woe to the person who pays that for this movie. But just like with Grizzly, Scorpion, I think it's Scorpion releasing, put this movie on a Blu-ray, and again, which apparently is a really good version of it. But not being a huge fan of this movie, I shan't be obviously worrying about getting that. But I guess that'll be my review for Day of the Animals. Basically, William Girdler's final opus, if you will. I'd like to. It would have been nice if he would have went out with Grizzly, but whatever. I mean, this is kind of fun too if you're drunk, I guess. I mean, I don't drink, so. But I mean, I would imagine it's probably a funner movie if you're, you know, intoxicated or affected by some kind of substance. But being a person who's of the sober variety, it was kind of a bore to get through. So thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.